Welcome back to another episode of Banking Matters. My name is Kelly Owsley, and I will be your host for today. Joining us today, we have Alicia Wade, President and Chief Operating Officer for Valliance Bank in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Alicia has been with Valliance for 16 years and serves on the board of directors. With 26 plus years of banking experience, she has become fully immersed in the banking community in Oklahoma as well as Texas. She serves on the board at the Oklahoma Bankers Association and Government Relations Council, in addition to the American Bankers Association Membership Council and Community Bank Council, and the Friends of Traditional Banking. She furthered her education by graduating from Southern Methodist University Graduate School of Banking in May of 2018. And in 2021, she was invited to join the 12-person Community Depository Institutions Advisory Council for the Federal Reserve Bank in Kansas, and she was elected to the Bankers Bank Board of Directors. As a board member of the OBA and Government Relations Council, Alicia has the honor of advocating for community banks and bankers across the state of Oklahoma. Through her involvement with the OBA, she has rallied for banks at our nation's capital in D.C. and has met with legislators to inform them of the important roles that community banks play in our cities and towns and how their decisions affect our small business owners, main streets, and communities. Welcome to our podcast, Alicia. We're so happy to have you here today.
Good morning, Kelly. Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So I will tell all of you folks that I've had the pleasure of working with Alicia and her team at Valliance Bank for about the past year and a half, and they are absolutely stellar. They're amazing. One thing, though, that I've never discussed with you, Alicia, and something we like to kind of start out with all of our guests, is how you actually got started in the banking industry and what led you to kind of dive into this world of banking.
Well, I think it would be safe to say that I am 100% an accidental banker. I went into the community bank in the city I grew up in the month I turned 18 to open a checking account. And I left with a checking account and a part-time teller position. And so I worked at the bank through college, and it was not my original career intent. And a few semesters in, I was like, I think I really want to do this, and changed my major to finance. And I've never looked back. So that part-time teller job in 1997 just spurred this love of banking that I still have today.
That's great. It's so funny because there's so many of those similar type of stories we hear, is that you kind of just fall into it and get started into it. I kind of have a similar type of story as well. So it's that's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about Valliance Bank. Kind of give us some background on your bank.
Valliance Bank was a de novo bank in 2004. And so in Oklahoma, we were at a point to where there was no more locally owned banks. We had one of the last ones was purchased by a bank out of Texas, and we had a group of community businessmen and bankers that decided they wanted to start a bank that was commercially focused for small to mid-sized businesses, really just truly here for the community. Everybody, all the directors, all the shareholders, the original founders, all lived in the community, worked in the community, and really just wanted to invest back into that. And so we were coming up on our 19th anniversary this October.
Wow.
When we opened October 20th, 2004, there were 6 employees, and the lobby construction wasn't even finished yet. So it was still a hard hat area, but it was okay. We didn't have any customers. And now we have 5 locations with 90 plus employees between Oklahoma and Texas, and still that same community spirit, though, of all those original shareholders are here. The directors all still live and work in our communities between Oklahoma City down to Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it just is that city and state minded group of individuals that, we have an entrepreneurial spirit when we hire. Mm-hmm. And it's at $588 million in assets, it still feels like it did on day one. of, just the grassroots efforts in each community.
That's fantastic. What a great story. So one of the many reasons that I'm excited to have you on today as a guest is kind of to discuss your bank's involvement in cannabis banking. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, Oklahoma voters authorized medical marijuana in 2018. Valliance Bank is one of the banks within the state to offer banking to the cannabis industry. So we know just from being in this industry, it's a bit of an underbanked industry right now, primarily just due to the compliance burden and the unknown. So tell us a little bit about what led to the board's decision to get involved in banking the cannabis industry.
It was a long road to saying yes. In the fall of 2018, Oklahoma voters approved medical marijuana, which shocked everybody. We never expected it to pass the first go round. And I mean, it's the Bible Belt. We're a red state. There were so many items that was fighting against it, and it passed with flying colors. And so in our January of 2019 board meeting, I brought it up, started to discuss, okay, is this something we even want to look at? Adamantly no. It was an adamant no. And okay. And so as our conversations go on, I remember we were at a board and advisory board dinner of April of 2019, and I brought it up, and now I had some that were piquing their interest and some that were still like, no, adamant no. Uh, but what we were doing as a team, a management team, an operations team behind the scenes, is we were already doing the legwork in the event the board said yes, because we knew it was not something that you could say yes on a Tuesday, get board approval, and be open doing it on a Wednesday.
Sure.
And so we wanted to see, is this doing our due diligence behind the scenes? Is this something we even want to really push and try to get across the finish line at the boardroom table? And went the whole year of 2019, and we were working behind the scenes as a bank team, trying to figure out what it would take, what it would do following the legislation, following that first year of really seeing how it was working.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority that we call OMA. So getting to know those individuals and just really doing our investigation and spending time, boots on the ground kind of efforts. January of 2020, so now we've come a whole year and actually 15 months post approval, and the board now wants to do it for two reasons.
Okay.
Reason number one is we were at a point to where it was so prevalent. I drive 30 minutes to work every day, and just passing the new businesses and what we were seeing pop up, seeing the industry that is legal here in our state, that they're able to set up shop just as a dentist or an attorney or an accounting firm, but didn't have the same rights and access to the type of banking needs that everybody has. I mean, just as simple as having a checking account. We were seeing the security issues. So really, as a community bank, we saw a community need and knew we had to fill it. That is our mission and purpose that we set out for in 2004. And we didn't want to turn our backs on a legal business in the community that needed us. And then fees were never the focus. We knew what it was going to cost, how much it was going to cost to run the program. But at January of 2020, we did need the deposits. And so it was the perfect time to kind of marry those two ideas of our loan to deposit ratio is high. We need to find some, low cost deposits, but then we also saw this need in the community that knew we could fill it. We had launched during our life cycle, we had launched a healthcare sector of banking, and we were able to take that model and say, okay, this is how we help dentists set up new offices. This is how we do this process for deposits and for treasury. We were able to take how we did that, setting up that niche market, and now just take it into cannabis. Obviously, it sounds easy on the front end, but we were doing a lot behind the scenes for the compliance part. And so really being able to go into the community and just say, okay, we're here for you, was life-changing. Little did we know that in March 2020, we were going to be hit with a pandemic. And so we were 60 days in to banking cannabis when the world essentially shut down. It was an NBA game
Sure.
here in Oklahoma City that was canceled because of, and as our governor at the time, who's still our governor today, was going through naming essential businesses, medical marijuana was kept an essential business.
Wow.
And because it had the medical piece, it
Sure.
was classified as healthcare.
Yeah.
And so dispensaries, grows, processors were all allowed to stay open during COVID. Not only that, they also added that dispensaries could do deliveries to homes within a 10-mile radius of their office.
Oh, wow.
So, needless to say, and honestly, when we did some statistical research, alcohol sales were very high during the recession
Mm-hmm.
of '07 to '09. Medical marijuana sales had the same boom during COVID,
Okay.
and so anxiety and
Sure.
just the everybody was going through,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was really just a serendipitous timing that we entered the market. There was at the time one other bank in the market because they have a bank in Arizona and Colorado, and so they'd already kind of carved their niche there.
Mm-hmm.
Their approach was completely different than ours, and so it was never. So us entering the market was kind of like a breath of fresh air of what we were able to do.
Sure. Interesting. So, did you? I know you had stated that you kind of already had a model with, implementing products and services for, dentists or doctors or whoever the case may be. Did you have to develop or create any additional products and services for that cannabis type industry?
We did mainly because for reporting purposes, being able
Mm-hmm.
to handle it on the core. You couldn't just say, okay, we're going to take our free business checking or the VIP checking or whatever it was. So we created a cash intensive
Okay.
business checking account, mainly because it allowed us to track from the teller line to the back office because it was given its own product and service code. We still use it to this day. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're 3.5 years in and developed tran codes. And so it was completely funneled into one area that allowed us to remove any human error of trafficking.
Okay.
And so the special deposit tickets made, the special accounts, everything really gave us an advantage for being able to do the reporting and on the core
Okay.
and our and honestly the relationship we built with the core over the years and our proactive approach to creating our own products and services and we really didn't need their help much because
Sure.
we understood the system so much, but had we not already had that proactive approach, I think it would have taken us longer because we would have had to wait on the core to get us to where we needed to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's excellent. So, as many of us, on the compliance side of the banking industry know, obviously it's, as you've mentioned and kind of walked us through it, it's a large undertaking. And it really has a major impact on the bank's BSA area, obviously. So, there's just a ton of monitoring and tracking and reporting. So, how did you go about building that team up and kind of educating them and getting them trained, to prepare for this and to manage it ongoing?
Quarter 4 of 2019, we were having a safety and soundness exam, and we were able to spend quite a bit of time with our examiners of if we go into this business, what does that look like?
Okay, good.
For the next exam, what does that look like with you? We are a state bank, non-Fed member, so the FDIC is our primary
Hmm.
regulator. The building I'm sitting in today, FDIC is the ninth floor.
Ah,
And so
lucky
you
for
pass them
you.
you see them in the deli, and then the state banking department is 5 miles down the road.
Okay.
So really, again, capitalizing on those relationships with the
Sure.
regulators of what does this look like? How are the exams going?
Yeah.
What is it that you're going to be looking for? It was such early stages, and because it was so new in Oklahoma, state banking department had not examined a bank yet with that. FDIC was really having to tap into some other regional offices to be able to provide us with some information we needed. But again, having first and foremost conversations up front with the regulators were key
Hmm.
because I didn't want them to come in and be surprised 18 months later of, oh, well, you didn't say anything about this when we were here last time. Uh, so that being able to, that was step one. until 2019, our BSA department was a BSA officer,
Okay.
and that was it. One person was able to do the work and handle it for the size of the institution we were, for the complexity that we were in. That was enough.
Sure.
Today, we sit at BSA officer, assistant BSA officer, and 5 additional employees.
Wow.
And that's not, but that was a long journey
Sure.
to get there. Everybody tells you you have to have a managing software. You have to have a software where you're going to put all this information in. Oklahoma was a little haphazard setting it up, of that they didn't require metric or any sort of tracking system that all OMMA licenses would have to use. We are now metric, where everybody has to use metric,
Okay.
and that is a game changer.
Sure.
But in the beginning days, we didn't have that, and so we were having to manually get reports. We did work with the software system in the beginning, that helped us with our tracking, and they sent us an email and we received a letter in the mail that said, we've been working with you, and your charge has been, and I'm just going to be very transparent, we've been paying $3,000 a month, so $36,000 a year for that product. And they said, based on the quantity that you have onboarded, we are going to have to do an addendum to your contract, and your new charge will be $43,000 starting with your next billing cycle.
Wow.
So what took our annualized cost was now going to be that in 1 month.
Oh my goodness.
And what we were experiencing at the time, and so that was 2021, what we were experiencing at the time is a lot of vendors that were price gouging, trying to cash in on the marijuana money that was flowing through all these businesses.
Right.
And again, our stand from the beginning was, we're here to help, and we're not going to partake in that. And so we immediately canceled our contract and started to develop our own in-house tracking system that would allow us to do it and still maintain, because their answer was, we're like, how is that feasible? They're like, pass it on to the customers. They're banking, they're rolling in cash. We're seeing the deposits they're bringing in. That's the problem, is they know how much is coming in. The state publishes, numbers each quarter on, here's what our tax dollars were, here's what the sales were. And we refused to work with anybody who was price gouging in industry. And so we immediately broke that contract, began to develop in-house. We were able to use some of the systems that we'd put into place during PPP to collect data and really take those resources in, because we're talking about, we have 3 locations in Oklahoma, and we're banking customers all over the state.
Sure.
And, so and it's a cash intensive business. So it's not, we can just put remote deposit capture, give you a mobile app, how are we going to? So we have to be agile. At that time, we'd also put in a private courier service that was picking up cash across the state, in certain parts of the state. And so now we're tracking that. And so it's just very important that we were able to understand the data we were collecting, how it matches what the state was needing versus what the regulators were wanting.
Right. Well, and I think it speaks volumes that you were able to, reach out to the FDIC in the state and kind of get their opinions and just kind of have them help you through implementation of this process. And then it sounds like just flexibility is really key when you're walking through these, implementation of this and learning as you're going. So that's amazing. It really is amazing to me, everything that you all have been able to, to kind of get accomplished in working through this. That's amazing. So,
and we were coming out of a period, or we were in a period to where during 2020, we did over 1,000 PPP loans.
Sure.
And never expanded our staff. And so, we knew what we were capable of. And so when that software, which we now have a different software company that we've coupled with our own internal processes, but when they said that, we were like, we can do this.
Yeah.
We just did the impossible last year during COVID.
Right.
We can do this.
Yes. COVID kind of toughened us all up. That's for sure. Very good.
Yes. Yeah. And we had a data engineer on our advisory board at the time who was able to help us. And so, having those resources and relationships, when we talk about what Valliance Bank was built on in 2004, 100% relationships. whether it's regulators, community focused individuals, so we had all those in place and when we needed them.
Sure, absolutely. That's excellent. So, with new bills, I know there's, anytime you're dealing in the cannabis industry, medical marijuana, you've got new bills probably consistently going through Oklahoma's legislature, regarding medical marijuana. How does your bank kind of stay up to date with all of that?
We have a consistent tracking. We receive daily reports federally and state between Oklahoma and Texas, since we have brick and mortar in both of those
Hmm.
states. We receive daily updates, and then we report any regulatory or legal changes to our board each month.
Okay.
And so that goes on a high risk uh, banking profile to them. So then some months it's 2 pages long.
Sure.
This last month, there was only 3 things to talk
Hmm.
about. And we follow Rohrbacher, we follow the DOJ, Safe Banking Act. We spend, part of the fee income that we make off of the cannabis industry. One, it's so expensive to run. Most of that fee income is paying for those costs.
Sure.
But then we use the fee income to lobby on behalf of the cannabis industry, to be involved in groups that we're in. We started a banking co-op here in co-op's not the right word. It's really a user
Hmm.
group. So a banking user group here in Oklahoma. So there's 6 banks in Oklahoma that touch cannabis, which is a really big deal because there's less than 70 in the United States,
Wow,
and 6 of them reside here in Oklahoma.
that's
And
wonderful.
so we meet quarterly, and so our director of operations started the group and runs the group to where there's a quarterly meeting for those banks. And so again, it's all about your relationships and your resources, and using that. But keeping track in 2022, no, actually, it was in March. It got moved to March of this
Hmm.
year. Oklahoma voted on recreational.
Okay.
And so the months leading up to recreational marijuana vote, we were meeting with the director of the OMMA, trying to ascertain how is this going to affect medical.
Yeah.
What's the runway?
Hmm.
If it's approved in March 2023, do we have till August to get set up? How is this going to work? And it did not pass, but that was something that you couldn't wait until March to be working on.
Right.
That was this time last year, we were working on what does it look like if recreational
Okay.
passes. In the same capacity, we're watching Texas, as Texas approves incremental
Hmm.
changes. What does that mean for us?
Sure, absolutely. That's something, I'm in the state of Kentucky, and that's something our banks in this state are facing right now as we just passed medical marijuana in March. So, the
Um,
banks here in my state are kind of going through that beginning process that you've described, and trying to understand, what are next steps? Do we want to do this? Do we not want to do this? So, kind of very similar challenges that you all faced a few years back. So, but yeah, I think this has just been invaluable information for those banks who are going through, similar processes in their states. Um, so like my state in Kentucky, if you had one piece of advice to give those banks who are kind of entering into this world, into cannabis banking, what would your advice be to those that are considering that?
you have to go in with eyes wide open. Anybody who thinks they're going to dip their toe in, we have never spent a single advertising dollar to for the cannabis
Okay.
industry. It is such a tight knit word of mouth. It's almost like a trust game of, okay, here's who we know we can work with.
Sure.
And so eyes wide open of, you can't dip your toe in. This is, you're either all in or you're not. But understand your why.
Hmm.
Why are you getting into it? If your loan to deposit ratio is 30%, you're not getting into it for the
Right.
deposits. Truly understanding, and that it's a very complex industry, and you're going to have to evolve and change with it. And it's not going to be a standard commercial real estate. We've been banking commercial real estate for as long as banks have been in place,
Right.
and so it you have to have somebody who is truly dedicated internally to understanding, tracking, boots on the ground, and building those relationships with the industries, and willing to go the extra mile to make sure that you're having stigma free banking out there for the community.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Alicia. It's just been a pleasure talking with you today, learning as much as we can about how you all at Valliance went about, implementing, jumping into the cannabis industry. So we really do appreciate your time today.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kelly.
Absolutely.
And I think it is worth noting that we want more banks in the cannabis space and
Yeah.
we've helped two banks in Mississippi start their programs. And so if you do have any clients or anybody who wants to talk about it, we're always more than willing. We're only as strong as our network, and this banking industry gets stronger if we help each other.
That's absolutely true. We really appreciate that so much. So, thank you so much again. Thank all of you for tuning in today, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Banking Matters.